So today I woke up to an interesting proposition. And I was wondering to myself, in the face of uncertainty, is the answer to actually do less? And I based that on Jungian psychology, where basically, you have that inner sense of self, but you have an external world. And I wonder, if you have less, right? Right, and you go through that sense of loss, destruction, the dark night of the soul, as people call it, then psychologically you see it as loss, right? And that makes sense. Because your brain is interpreting it as the old identity, the old system, the old way of doing things. So, it got me thinking, well, you can't go back to who you was because that no longer works. But you don't have enough information to go to the future because you don't know what's there. So as I'm going through this, I'm wondering to myself, well, if there are parts within the shadow which are repressed, right, as Carl Jung puts it, then it leads me to believe that Buddhist monks would be correct, which is kind of strange. It's got me thinking, well, okay, well, maybe the answer is literally to just detach from technology, go into the woods, meditate, and try to accept every part of one's being, not in the hopes to become enlightened, but in the hope to become integrated. So the one thing that I've been trying to understand is integrating the shadow and the ego, as one would put it, but basically understanding the light versions of it, the bit that makes us light, right? In other words, the bit that gives us the energy and the bit which drains us, and understanding the difference between the two. Now, in a lot of systems, a lot of people say that this is like ikigai and stuff like that. I think it's deeper than that. I think it's a case of trying to make sense of how to move forward in a way that is true to you and your nature. Because the one thing that I see too often, even if you go to work, even if you play games, like video games, even if you watch pornography, even if you do all of those things, which are good self-improvement habits, right? Even if you follow people on the manosphere, why are they always so empty? Why is it that they always say, oh, I did all of this stuff, but something's still missing? And it got me thinking. It's not because they're doing more than you. It's not because they are better than you in any way. I think it's because they haven't sat long enough to understand who they are as a person. Isn't that interesting? Because the thing that I'm beginning to realize is that as we move towards AI, people are going to become more disillusioned, not because of the AI, but because they're losing a sense of self. And I'm beginning to see that, not because I'm the first, but because I took the time to observe. Because in a room full of noise, I chose to become quiet. And I always find it amazing. They always say, oh, you should look out for the quiet ones. No, you should just become quiet and listen. Now, what's interesting is that in things like the Sanatana Dharma, there's a very interesting paradox. It says that you cannot be the observer and ask the question who you are. I would like to challenge that and say, don't look at it from the lens of thought, but look at it through the lens of meaning, in the sense that you are feeling and judging based upon what gives you fulfillment and what doesn't. And then come to your own conclusion. Because yes, you can't invert your eyes inward because you can see because you're constantly seeing what's on the outside, right? You look at your phone, you look at the screen, and you say, oh, okay, well, this is how the world is. But that's not a representation of your inner world. Isn't that interesting? And that may not necessarily because you don't agree with the external world. You're still living inside the world. But I think that we lose touch of who we are inherently. And that losing of touch of who we are inherently, according to Jungian psychology, is what shows up in the consciousness because it's been subjected to to dishonesty within ourselves, right? So if we have to be honest with ourselves, we have to be honest with our actions. And I think that that's one of the ways that we have to move forward. Maybe that is the way that we move forward. Who knows? But I think you can't ignore your feelings because your feelings are part of you. You can't ignore your thoughts because they're part of your ego. If your feelings determine your actions, that's fine. But without being still, everything that you do is noise. And that's the bit they don't tell you in self-improvement. Because it's not really self-improvement. It's closer to inner engineering. And this is what I suggest on this channel. This channel is not about self-improvement. It's not about esoteric practices. It's not about all of that stuff. It simply asks you to draw your own conclusion as to who you are as a person. That's what this channel is about. Not because I say so, and it's not because, what I'm doing and all of this stuff. It is a reflection of my own experience that I impart to you. And that's the difference. Right? That's what I offer you. So, sit with what I've said, and hopefully it resonates with you. And then maybe we'll find an answer to that inner truth. All right. I'll catch you on the next one.